All right, so look, we're asking people how they feel about their baseball team following a road trip that saw them enter the road trip 6 games out in front, and they've come back from the road trip still 6 games out in front. But I think anybody that watched it says this doesn't look like the best version of the Tigers. I think anybody else that sort of knows how baseball goes, this is probably just the ebbs and flows of a season. Teams get into cold stretches. The season's too long. There's too much variability in baseball to make it sort of predictable each and every night, no matter how good or bad you are. And look, it just weren't as sharp, okay? But how would you characterize your feelings towards this team? Here's a bunch of feedback coming in from Tiger fans. Every team has dud weeks, dud series, and offensive lulls over 162. But things are getting exposed that will need to be addressed. Bullpen depth, Ibanez, Sweeney, and Eptis. Well, one thing I will say, and we've done this, we did this with the Lions. It's good to have weaknesses exposed well before the trade deadline.
Yes.
So said weaknesses can get addressed. And, you know, the Lions did respond last year when they got a Zadarius Smith to address the pass rush. And if the players keep getting paraded out and not producing, it's such an insulting term, paraded out. But you know what I'm saying? If players keep being given opportunities and they aren't coming through, you can address it at the trade deadline. You can. And I would argue that the Alex Bregman contract offer tells you something about the shifting dynamics with ownership. That contract offer tells you that this team is serious about adding talent, regardless of cost, to try and win a World Series. Now, they didn't get him. Got it. But that was a real offer. It was a real offer in terms of it actually happened. It's factual. And B, it was a real offer in terms of it's a big financial commitment.
Yeah, I don't think they're messing around, man. I think that they see an opportunity here, and this is validation of what happened at the end of last year. It wasn't some fluke how they won it. The fluke was the style that they did it. The fluke was being able to put together and cobble together a winning formula despite having 1.5 starting pitchers down the stretch, and continuing that through the playoffs and beating the Astros and almost taking down the Guardians as well. But it was the style. It wasn't that's a bad team that just got lucky. No, they just did something unconventional. Now they're back to being a conventional baseball team for the most part, and they're still playing the same way. They're still winning at the same winning percentage. They're killing it out there. So when they went out and made that offer to Bregman, and Bregman eventually turned it down and 30 minutes later signs with the Red Sox, it tells you they're not messing around. They're trying to make this team better. And they thought they had the deal done with Bregman, and it fell through at the last second because Boston put out their ridiculous offer. So why would we think that they're not going to? It's the same team that they had, basically the same record-wise, basically what they had going down the stretch, and they tried to make a big splash at the end. So now here we are, 6 months later, and it's a similar situation. Got the same team that's killing it. You'll have an opportunity to make a big splash by the trade deadline. I expect them to do something.
More feedback. The Tigers' horrific at bats where they swing at everything they can makes the pitcher look good, like Nolan Ryan reincarnated, even though he's not yet dead. Imagine. Interesting analogy. As if Nolan Ryan were back from the dead, except he's not dead. Imagine these at-bats against playoff teams. It is a huge concern, and right now I'm not seeing this lineup winning any playoff series.
Well, if you're going to judge it on the 4 games against the White Sox, then I guess go ahead and do so at your own peril. Then you're ignoring the other 60 games they played this season, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what you're doing. And if you're doing that, then you're ignoring how they played against good baseball teams.
Some of their bats against good baseball teams earlier this year. Yeah, if they're the worst version of themselves in the postseason, guess what? They're not winning a playoff series. Yeah, I would agree with that. But did they produce more against the Yankees? They produce more offensively. The at-bats better against the Padres. You know, did they have better offensive at-bats, earlier in the year? Hell, they produced more runs in getting swept by the Dodgers at the beginning of the year.
What's crazy is they did. They had great at bats, and then unfortunately they couldn't come up with the big at bat with the big hit when they had the runners in scoring position, and they've been so much better since then. It's crazy to think about this team that we can actually single out the series that they haven't been good. You can do that because they've been so good everywhere else. It's like they stand out. The series against Houston, the series against the Texas Rangers, the series against the Guardians. And then this one against the White Sox, I think, is comparable because of who the opponent is, and you're expecting to go in there winning 3 out of 4 or perhaps sweeping, and you only take 2 out of 4. So maybe that's going to be included in that mix. But that's it. Everything else has been pretty good. Even though they got swept by the Dodgers, like you said, they played well in that series. They just didn't get rewarded because they didn't come up with a big hit.
Yeah, a lot of hits, a lot of runners on base, just not a lot of
runs.
Not good with runners in scoring position. Guys have been cold since St. Louis. The starting pitching depth has evaporated due to injury. The bullpen, aside from Vest and Tommy, has been bad. This is super concerning. Okay, so I said something to monitor. This guy went with super concerning. Gator's still chesty. Super concerning is pointing towards the panic side. Now, panic at times with certain teams can be justifiable, right? I'm not, saying the panic isn't necessarily. I mean, if you're panicked, it doesn't mean you're overreacting all the time. Could be reason to panic, but this guy super concerning is pointing more towards the panic side of the meter.
Well, they're 8-6 in those 14 games since the series win over the Cardinals.
Yep.
So if you think it's very concerning in a 14-game snapshot, okay. I mean, were you concerned after? I mean, they lost the 3 in a row to Cleveland and then came back and won 5 in a row, including 7 of the next 8 games. So
that the stretch going 4-3 every week gets you 92, 93 wins. And that's a pretty damn good season. 248-539-9797. We all got a good education. The Sox have some good arms. They found a Rule 5 gem in Shane Smith, and Sean Burke has only given up more than 2 runs once in his last 7 games. Who's the other guy that came out of the bullpen for them? Name starts with a V. I'm blanking on his name. But they have some decent talent there. I was watching this series thinking, okay, if I'm a White Sox fan, I'm not pleased with what I'm seeing on the field. But the truth is, you can see parts that might work for them long term. Mike Vassell is the name of the bullpen.
And then they got that squirrely looking rookie, Mydroth, who just killed them. I mean, he was amazing. 4 or 5, 8 hits in the 4 games for him. And he also drew 5 walks. Yeah. 8 hits and 5 walks in 4 games. That's impressive.
He actually sounds like a Scott Harris kind of player.
Yeah.
I'm so over the Andy Ibanez experience. Thanks for the memory. That's from an unnamed texter.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
The Shy Sox have some attractive arms. Maybe they'd be interested in someone like Colt. So you're suggesting that Tigers trade Colt for an arm? I kind of think they're settled in on Colt being part of this team, but
I don't know if they need a starter.
Yeah, remember this. If you are going to go after somebody that can help you now, you probably don't want to give up someone who's helping you now. You probably want to give up. If a team's interested in giving away you a good player, they're presumably in a rebuild, and you're trading them someone from your system, not someone from your current major league roster.
Plus, don't you need to hang on to Colt Keith to trade for Paul Skeens?
Well, that's why the Skeens thing is.
I was being sarcastic.
I know you were. Gator salty because BetOnline.ag came out with Paul Skeens' next team odds yesterday, and
why are they doing this?
I don't know.
He's not going to get traded.
It seems so unbelievable. Why are they doing this? Because Nico Harrison traded Luka Doncic. That's why they're doing it, and it's started the cycle of absurd trade stuff all over again. Because once every blue moon, an absurd trade takes place. All right, 248-539-9797. There's a lot of people that are telling us how they currently feel about their baseball team. I just think what's gone on lately is something to monitor. Gator is still chesty. We have had super concerning come in on the other side of the spectrum. Where are you?